Hi everyone, I hope all of you are doing okay. If you are finding that you are inside a lot more than you would normally be, I'm here to show you some of the finer points of practicing to do handstand. There are 4 inversions. There's the handstand, forearm balance, headstand, and shoulder stand. Handstand classically is the introduction into inversions because it's considered the safest of the 4. I imagine that probably sounds weird because headstand in modern yoga has been the pose that most people try to achieve first because it's possible to balance that one in the middle of the room. The problem with doing headstand is if your alignment isn't essentially perfect, you can cause yourself a lot of problems in your neck and potentially in your back, because in a headstand, you're putting the entire weight of your body right on the top of your head. And if not aligned correctly, or if not appropriately muscularly engaged in your body, again, it can cause a lot of damage. Forearm balance is also a little bit easier to balance in the middle of the room, but we're talking about potentially having shoulder issues if that's not done with correct alignment. Oftentimes, the arms, when set up for that pose, result in people leaning forward or their elbows splay out, or a multitude of other issues that, while in the short term you may be able to hold the balance for a little bit, in the long term you can have a lot of injury and maybe not be able to do inversions for longevity. Shoulder stand, to me, is the one that one should be most careful of when practicing it. I always practice that pose with a ton of props. My wife, who is an excellent yoga teacher, has shown me a bunch of different ways to safely come into shoulder stand and be able to hold the pose. But handstand, strangely, is the hardest one to balance in the middle of the room, but it is the safest one to work on, and the one that you could work on every day for the rest of your life and have fewer worries about injury. So some things that you might want to be aware of. If you have wrist issues, you'll want to be careful doing anything weight bearing, and we'll see if we can do some poses around working with that as well. As far as other body conditions go, handstand is a weight-bearing pose. So when you're coming into this pose, be prepared to have to use your arms and your shoulders, as well as your chest, core, back muscles, and legs. So handstand is an all-encompassing, all-engaging pose. So let's get into a couple of exercises that all of us can do, and we'll keep ramping up the options, and you can take what works for you and leave the rest. I am just delighted to be here talking with you today. So for exercise number 1, let's do handstand upside down, which is essentially standing right side up, but we're going to create all of the energy for the pose with an accenting on what you want the arms to be doing. So check this out. Strengthen your legs by shortening your feet. And by shortening your feet, what I do is I scrunch up my toes so that the ball mounts of my feet move back. And then I press the ball mounts into the ground so I feel like I have arches. Then I allow the toes to simply spread out on the mat. I strengthen my legs by hugging the shins in, flexing the quadriceps, moving the thighs back, knitting the ribs together. So at this point, I am already doing a lot of work. I bring the shoulders up by the ears and the shoulder blades onto the back. Do you see that? And then spread out the collarbones. Arms are straight and strong, and with the shoulder blades on the back and the collarbones spread wide, I'm bringing my hands up to the ceiling. What I'm trying to do, and I'm not sure how accurately the shot portrays this, is I'm trying to turn my palms to the ceiling. What this tells you is I have very tight wrists, and that's actually okay that they're tight. It just means that I have to be mindful the first few times I put my hands on the floor and I bear weight on them. So you got this? So I'm pulling the rib cage back. In fact, I'm shortening my front body lengthening my back body, keeping the side bodies long and the arms straight and strong, and coming out of it. Boy, if you did that a couple times a day, you would get stronger, and that doesn't require any additional props or any additional effort with actually going upside down. This is just creating upside down while standing right side up. Let's try something else together. So this one's going to require me to turn my back to you for a moment, but check it out. I'm sitting with my back to you, and I am extending my legs onto the wall. I'm going to move these out of the way because I actually set up one more way in which you could look at me. So if you check this out, my legs are pressed against the wall, and I'm in staff pose. So my arms are pressed by my side, long side body, pulling the ribs in, lengthening out the collarbones. So my goal here is to do this same pose, but flip the entire thing and invert it. So this is what I'm going to do. Right now, I'm the appropriate length away from the wall because I want my feet to stay on the wall just like this. So what I'll do is I'll move towards the camera here, and I'm going to come forward to my hands and knees. Placing my hands on the ground directly underneath me. So what you saw was me turning over to my hands and knees, but my distance is exactly where my hips were. So look at where my hands are. I'll do that one more time. So I'm sitting here, and I have my hands by my side, and I'm turning over and bringing my hands exactly where my hips were. When I come into the L pose on the wall, that's going to allow me to be the appropriate distance away. Check this out. Pressing my heels into the wall and lifting my hips up. Pulling the rib cage in. Arms straight and strong. I could start here, and if you decide to go no further, this is a great opportunity to strengthen. If you want to go up higher, you walk the feet up the wall until the feet are in line with the hips. No higher. This is incorrect. If you do this, you're defeating the purpose of the pose. So the feet are in line with the hips, and then, there it is. Straightening the legs out, coming into the L pose. Notice, it's a reflex to want to move my chest forward, so I have to press my chest towards the wall. And if you hear me breathing hard, that's because it's a very challenging pose. So the key is to keep strong alignment when doing that pose. It's going to make you stronger over time. Don't be discouraged if you have trouble walking your feet up the wall. That'll come if you just practice this shortened down dog. You can always practice by putting one foot up. See if you can lift the foot up, set it down, and then practice the other way, set it down. So lots of options at this point. Something else you can do. So I'm going to refer to this as a common misalignment because I think the desire to get into a handstand is so strong with some people that they simply arbitrarily throw themselves up against the wall. Let me show you what I mean. So, no matter what camera angle you're looking at me from, this is putting a lot of stress on my low back. My arms are bent, my stomach is sticking out, and I'm doing nothing to support my body and to create strength. So my first solution to that is, of course, doing the L pose, which we did a moment ago, because that's going to foster knitting those ribs together and creating a strong sense of engagement of the body. The next thing I would practice is, they're handstand hops, but they're more like bunny hops because you're doing them with both feet on the ground. This is not as commonly practiced because it's harder to get your hips over your shoulders and find an upside down position. But on the other hand, it's going to create better alignment and more strength. And the key to these bunny hops is when I'm jumping up, I'm keeping my knees bent and I'm not concerning myself with bringing the legs to the ceiling. So let's see how this works out. So if you're looking, what you're seeing is I have shortened my down dog significantly. And now I'm going to play with hopping up. Straight arms, up, down, up, down. Now a common occurrence here where someone's missing the idea of what they want to do is the idea that if you simply lift your feet, you'll go up. In order to go up, you have to press down firmly into the floor. So in order to get the lift that you want, you have to press in the opposite direction. So when I bend my knees and I push my feet into the floor, up I go. So what I'm looking for in the long run is to try to get my hips to the wall. So if you can see, I adjusted my hands a little bit. My hands, just so you know, are about between 8 and 12 inches away from the wall. It depends on how you're built, and it depends how it will look for you when you get upside down. Let me show you what it looks when I get upside down. So I'm about 8 inches away. When I come up, check it out. Notice I'm not straightening my legs out. That's not even my concern. Here's my concern. Knitting the ribs together and pushing into my fingertips. My gaze is not at the floor. My gaze is directly behind me because I'm not concerning myself with balancing in the middle of the room. In fact, what I was concerning myself with was making sure that my alignment was solid and that I was essentially doing this pose while upside down. Let me show you that one more time. So I'm gonna hop, I'm gonna bend my knees, up and over I go. Now here's how I can toy with the balance. If I press into my fingertips and put my toes on the wall and don't move anything else, maybe for a moment or two, I can find my balance. So consider this for a moment. Your legs are appendages, right? So when I stand up, look how long my legs are. So if my legs are flailing about, that's actually adding a number of factors to trying to maintain balance. Picture it this way. Picture cat o' nine tails, or reeds sticking up out of the water, or even an antenna on your car. When the wind blows, the higher up that thing is, the more that it's going to be swayed by the wind. So when you're doing a pose like handstand, and you're trying to straighten your legs too quickly, you're actually creating a number of balance factors that you now have to contend with, associated with being able to hold balance to even strength. So my encouragement to all of you practicing at home, try doing a handstand without lifting your legs to the sky. So here, I'm gonna play with a little bit more today. Check this out. Now, that was the 2-footed hop. The next step in the process is gonna be learning to hop with 1 foot. So I will show this a couple of different ways, and first I'm gonna show it where you can see me from sideways, and then I'll do it with a wall. So the way for me to safely practice this in the middle of the room is to make sure that, first of all, I have the shortened down dog, but the leg that I'm hopping up with, or that I'm putting on the ground and hopping with, I'm going to keep that really low to the ground while I bring the other leg up as high as I can manage. Watch how that works. So in this case, I'm hopping up with my left leg, I'm pressing into the floor with my right leg, but my left leg is the one that's airborne. Watch this. Do you see how I kept my right leg really low? So now I can practice with jumping harder. Maybe even harder. Oh wow, now I'm finding a spot. So if I am keeping this right leg moving towards the earth, what ends up happening is it keeps me from going over. It keeps me from falling over. Now, is that a guarantee? Is it a guarantee you won't fall sideways? Obviously, having very strong, straight arms is necessary. And if you don't have strong, straight arms, or if you allow yourself to wobble one way or the other sideways, it's going to result in a different kind of a fall, but what I'm trying to help you avoid is falling over onto your back. So let's try it the other way even. So now I'm going to hop off my left leg. So check this out. Even moving my right leg back and trying to throw my balance, as long as I keep that left leg hanging out on that side, then the chances of me going over are a lot less. So I hope that helps you. So now, let's put together a couple of things we just did. The two-footed hop is also something you can practice in the middle of the room. The two-footed hop, the one that I just did a moment ago where I had my feet on the wall, check this out. If I do it in the middle of the room, I can toy with finding my balance point a lot more easily, so check it out. Here we go. There we go. Look how far over my hips are. Look at how I keep my knees bent. So by doing that, I'm taking a lot of X factors of balance out of the equation. So in the end, I can practice balancing in the middle of the room, but I'm not worried about whether or not it actually happens. In this case, I'm glad that it did happen while I was showing you on video, so you know what you can work towards. But in the long run, it's all about the practice. It's all about the journey. It's all about the middle ground. And where the middle is, there's balance. So it's not about an end game, because that's on one side. And it's not about starting. Well, you have to start. But after you initially start, the focus on whether you have the right background or the right music or, I don't know, some other external factors, that becomes irrelevant. What becomes relevant is the middle, because that's where the balance is. So I hope some of these tips helped you. I'll be putting together a couple more videos expounding upon some more tricks you can do with the L pose, some more tricks you can do with the two-footed hop, with the one-footed hop. We'll play with a lot of different things, but I wanted to give you just a starter video of a few things you could play with. Now, to help your wrists at the end, check this out. Here's what I like to do. This is my right wrist. I make a clamp with my left hand, place it around my right wrist, just above the bone. You see that? And then I'm shaking the wrist out, keeping the right hand limp, and just shaking out the wrist so that the muscles in the joints have a chance to let go. I kind of look at this as like when you're laying on your mat and you have your feet on the earth and your knees pointing to the sky and you windshield wipe your knees back and forth. This is the same kind of release for your wrists. Don't forget to do both sides. One more wrist stretch you can do is interlace your fingers through the top of one hand. So this is my right hand interlacing through my left hand, and pull that wrist back. It's a pretty good feeling, getting that kind of a stretch. And then you can do the same thing on the other side. And the last wrist exercise we can do together involves interlacing your fingers together like this. Do you see that? Bending both wrists to a 90-degree angle. So this is my right arm, so check this out. When I bend that wrist downwards, I'm bending the left wrist upwards. My arms are always horizontal to the earth. Once you've achieved this position, watch this. I'm pulling with my fingers. So you can't visually see that, but I'm pulling with my fingers and keeping them interlocked. And that's stretching the top of my right wrist and the bottom of my left wrist. And of course, one has to switch sides. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope everybody is doing okay, and come visit us online at totalbodyyoga.com. You can look at our yoga videos page where you'll see videos like this and a whole bunch of others. Or you can come and visit us online live for our Zoom classes, which you can look at on the schedule and you can sign up for them online. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.